Okay, in this video I just wanted to talk about mains charging for Panasonic cameras, and it does vary a little bit across different cameras. So for older cameras, I've already done a video about power charging. You'll have to use the AC10 adapter, so I'll link up to that in the corner. But essentially, for those older ones you need a dummy battery and you'll need that adapter, but for newer cameras you do have slightly different options. So depending on what you're doing, with these kind of newer cameras, you've got the option for USB-C charging. So that includes new cameras or newer cameras, like you've got the GH6, the G9 Mark II, you've got the S5 Mark II and the S5 Mark IIX. They should all have this this side sort of USB port. I don't have the S5 II or 2X, but I know the X version supports SSD recording through this USB the USB port, but it shouldn't make any difference for this because all we're doing is doing USB charging, which for a lot of the newer cameras, the GH6 actually did come with a what they call a battery sled. I'm not sure if I've got one of those handy, but basically, here we go. One of these. So essentially, you get one of these, you plug in your USB-C port to the wall, and then it charges it through this, what they call like a battery sled or a battery dock, whatever you want to call it. With the newer cameras, they actually just charge through USB-C. So you just plug your camera in through USB-C, and that's how you'll charge it. And somebody had asked me if you can power the camera whilst working with it. So essentially a similar thing to what you do with the AC10. With the AC10, it's not charging a battery because you've got a dummy battery in it. That is my preferred method because you're not working the battery whilst you're doing this, because if you're doing it for long periods of time, obviously it puts a little bit of strain on the battery because you're constantly topping it up and depleting it and topping it up. So my preferred option is the AC10, but with this adapter, this is just a Anker 60 watt USB-C charger. So USB-C on this end, USB-C on this end. Not that that matters much. It's a USB PD charger. So if we plug this in, and then at the moment the camera's off. So Panasonic always recommends, if you're using mains power to the camera, you leave it off when you put the plug in, and you switch it off when you take it out as well. So what we'll do is just put that in, and then on the top of the camera you should see here we've got our red lights just sort of popped up, and that indicates that there's a charge going into the camera. So that's working, and then if we switch it on, you should also see this menu pops up, but the thing is we don't actually want to use any of those. We don't want PC storage tether or pick bridge, so you can just hit this little return arrow at the bottom there, and then it goes back and it sort of has a little think about what it's doing, and you can see it's not yet charging, but if you leave it for long enough, there you go, you can see it's absolutely tiny, but this little charger icon has come up above the battery, and that essentially means the camera's running, and it's being charged as it's running. So you can, if you wanted to, sorry if this is a bit dark on the screen, you can actually hit record, and you can see it's actually still charging it as I'm recording. So in theory, you can, some of the recording modes do work the camera quite hard, so you can never guarantee that the battery's always charging up and it's not being sort of depleted at the same time, being depleted more than it is charging. It really depends on some of the shooting modes you're using and what you're doing, but you can always guarantee whilst it's sat in standby, or you're not doing too intensive tasks on it, that it will always be charging up. So you can kind of see as well on the top, let me just take that off. Yeah, you can see on the top. Sorry, I had Bluetooth on. You can see on the top we don't have that indicator anymore on there, so you just need to check on the actual screen just to check that it's charging. But yeah, it's totally possible. So if you're in situations where maybe you want to use the camera for live streaming, or you're in a studio environment where you've got access to power, and you're probably not moving the camera too much because you're obviously tethered by a USB cable. So there's options for it, and it can be quite a workable solution. It just absolutely depends on what your requirements are, access to power, all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, this can be a good solution over the sort of AC10. It's a much more affordable solution, because that is going to cost you nearish to about £100 or $120, $130 for the dummy battery and the cable. Whereas this, I'm using an adapter that it was just something I already had. It was just an Anchor adapter that I had. Someone mentioned about using MacBook Pro chargers. In theory, that should work. It's just using the USB PD sort of delivery method. So, it should just take the power it needs from whatever you plug into it. So, you should be okay using other adapters for other things. Like I say, I use this. I've had no issues with it. I've not seen anything where Panasonic are really sort of against you using, different chargers and things. You can also obviously use if you did get the original charger with it. So in my case, I've got the wall adapter, and I've got the bit that fits into the sled or the dock, or whatever you want to call the battery kind of cradle. So you can plug that into the wall, and you can use the USB-C lead that you get supplied with the camera if you've got that in your version of the camera. My kind of issue with it is that the plug itself is just not very well designed. It's like it's a wide plug, and the USB-C lead comes out of the right of it. Again, you might have a slightly different version to the one I've got, but the one I've got is just incredibly impractical. It doesn't fit into 90% of, like wall ports I try to put it into. And the other issue with it for me is that the cable is too short. So, if I'm up doing tabletop work, or, really just anything, because most main ports are on the ground, yeah, you could probably run an extension lead, but it's just another thing, like to get in the way. And it's for me, it's much easier just using a different plug. For me, again, a more practical plug, and then just a longer USB-C cable. But that's totally up to you. You could be not having to spend anything extra by using the bits that you've got included in the camera that you bought. It's one of those things where you can just sort of experiment a bit with it and check it works. But like I say, it's not my number one solution for this kind of thing, but it is a workable solution. So hopefully that's helped. If you've got any questions, obviously leave them in the comments. If you found the video helpful, please give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this, then please subscribe.